The People's Mayor, Zohran Mamdani's journey to City Hall. From Kampala to City Hall, an American story. On the first day of January 2026, just after midnight, a historic ceremony took place beneath the streets of New York City. In an abandoned subway station under City Hall, a 34-year-old Democratic Socialist placed his hand on a 200-year-old Quran and took the oath of office as the 112th mayor of New York City. Zohran Mamdani had arrived at the pinnacle of American municipal politics, completing one of the most improbable political journeys in modern American history. The setting itself carried symbolic weight. The disused Times Square subway station, forgotten by many New Yorkers, despite existing beneath one of the world's most famous intersections, represented everything Mamdani's campaign had been about. The overlooked, the underserved, the people and places that had been left behind. Later that day, as tens of thousands gathered outside City Hall for the public inauguration under a cold January sky, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted in the political landscape of America's largest city. The Quran that Mamdani used for his private oath belonged to Arturo Schomburg, a black historian and writer, who sold his collection of 4,000 books to the New York Public Library in 1926. The small volume, produced in Ottoman Syria during the 19th century, was designed for everyday use. Its black and red ink and minute Nask script suggested it was made, not for display, but for the daily practice of faith. For the public ceremony, Mamdani would use two Qurans that belonged to his grandparents, connecting his past to his present, his family's faith to his city's future. The roots of a revolutionary. Zohran Mamdani entered the world on October 18, 1991, in Kampala, Uganda, the only child of two extraordinary individuals who would shape his worldview and his destiny. His father, Mahmoud Mamdani, was a renowned post-colonialist academic whose work examined the legacy of colonialism and the structures of power in Africa. His mother, Mira Nair, was a filmmaker whose movies celebrated the stories of immigrants and outsiders, people navigating between cultures and identities. The family moved frequently during Mamdani's early years, spending 3 years in Cape Town, South Africa, before settling in New York City when he was 7 years old. Growing up between continents, between cultures, between identities, would profoundly influence how Mamdani understood the world and his place in it. He was simultaneously insider and outsider, American and immigrant, privileged by his parents' accomplishments yet acutely aware of what it meant to be different. Mamdani attended the Bronx High School of Science, one of New York's most prestigious specialized high schools. As a teenager, he took the subway and bus across the city to reach the Bronx, experiencing the daily commute that millions of working New Yorkers endured. Those subway rides, those crowded buses, those hours spent in transit would stay with him. They became part of his political education, teaching him about the lives of the people who made the city run. At Bowdoin College in Maine, Mamdani majored in Africana Studies, returning intellectually to the continent of his birth and exploring the histories his father had spent a lifetime studying. He graduated in 2014 and returned to New York, but without a clear path forward. He worked as a housing counselor, helping people navigate the city's complex rental market and affordable housing programs. He saw firsthand how the affordability crisis was destroying families and communities. He also pursued music, releasing songs under different names, including Salam under his middle name and Nanny, a tribute to his grandmother, under the moniker Mr. Cardamom. The political awakening. Mamdani's entry into politics came not through traditional channels or long-term planning, but through an unexpected cultural connection. In 2015, he read an article in the Village Voice about Ali Najmi, a candidate running in a special election for the New York City Council. What caught Mamdani's attention was that Najmi was supported by Heems, a New York rapper of Indian descent and co-founder of the alternative hip-hop group Das Racist. Mamdani, a fan of Heems, was inspired by the idea that hip-hop, culture, and electoral politics could intersect. He volunteered for Najmi's campaign, knocking on doors in Queens, learning the mechanics of organizing. Though Najmi lost, Mamdani had discovered something vital. Politics didn't have to be the province of professionals and insiders. It could be a vehicle for ordinary people to fight for change. In 2017, Mamdani joined the New York City chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, part of a wave of young people radicalized by Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign and the election of Donald Trump. He worked on campaigns for city council candidates, learning the rhythms and strategies of local politics. He campaigned for Kader El-Yateem and Ross Barkan, both progressive candidates challenging the political establishment. These campaigns taught Mamdani that winning required more than good ideas. It required organization, discipline, and the ability to build coalitions across different communities. It required showing up, day after day, conversation after conversation, building trust block by block. The Assembly years. In 2020, Mamdani ran for the New York State Assembly in the 36th District, representing Astoria, Ditmar-Steinway, and Astoria Heights in Queens. It was a neighborhood he knew well, a working-class and middle-class area experiencing rapid gentrification, where longtime residents, worried about being priced out of the community they had built. Mamdani ran as an unabashed democratic socialist, refusing to moderate his message or hide his ideology. He supported universal health care, the Green New Deal, and dramatic increases in taxes on the wealthy. He won, joining a small but growing caucus of DSA members in Albany. As an assembly member, Mamdani distinguished himself through his willingness to engage in direct action alongside the communities he represented. When taxi drivers, crushed by predatory medallion loans and the rise of ride-sharing apps, went on hunger strike, Mamdani joined them. His participation helped build public pressure that eventually led to more than $450 million in debt relief for drivers. He fought for increased subway service and secured more than $100 million in the state budget for transit improvements, including funding for a fare-free bus pilot program. When a dirty power plant threatened his district, he organized neighbors to defeat the proposal. These weren't abstract policy victories. They were tangible improvements in people's lives, achieved through organizing and persistence. But Mamdani remained a backbench legislator, not particularly well-known outside his district. When he announced his candidacy for mayor on October 23, 2024, few political observers gave him a serious chance. He was running against Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, who had resigned amid scandal, but retained significant name, recognition, and fundraising capacity. The campaign that changed everything. Mamdani's platform was audacious, even radical by conventional political standards. He proposed making city buses completely free, arguing that public transportation should be a public good, available to everyone without cost. He called for a rent freeze and rent-stabilized housing to protect tenants from displacement. He proposed that the city government operate 5 grocery stores, one in each borough, to drive down food prices and provide healthy options in food deserts. He supported universal public childcare, arguing that families shouldn't have to choose between quality care for their children and financial stability. He proposed building 200,000 new affordable housing units, a massive expansion of the city's public and affordable housing stock. He called for a $30 minimum wage by 2030, rejecting arguments that such an increase would harm businesses. His platform included tax increases on corporations and individuals earning above $1 million annually, a direct challenge to the wealthy elite who had long dominated city politics. He expressed support for comprehensive public safety reform, rejecting both the tough-on-crime rhetoric of conservatives and the more cautious approaches of mainstream Democrats. Critics dismissed the platform as unrealistic fantasy, a wish list disconnected from the complexities of governing. They argued that Mamdani lacked the experience necessary to run a city of 8 million people with an annual budget exceeding $100 billion. Some questioned whether his democratic, socialist ideology would alienate moderate voters necessary for victory. For most of the primary campaign, polls showed Mamdani trailing Cuomo significantly. But something was happening on the ground that polls struggled to capture. Mamdani was building a grassroots movement that transcended traditional political organizing. Young people, many voting for the first time, were energized by his vision of what the city could become. Immigrant communities saw themselves reflected in his story. Working families, struggling with rent and childcare costs, saw someone who understood their struggles. Mamdani's donor base, while similar in total dollars to Cuomo's, was vastly larger in terms of individual contributors. Tens of thousands of people gave small amounts, creating a sense of collective ownership over the campaign. Every $5 or $20 donation represented someone who believed in the possibility of change. The campaign mobilized volunteers at a scale rarely seen in municipal politics. Thousands of people knocked on doors, made phone calls, sent text messages. They talked to their neighbors, their co-workers, their families. They built a movement that existed beyond any single candidate or campaign. As the June 24, 2025 primary election approached, something shifted. Polls showed Mamdani catching up to Cuomo. The momentum was palpable. On election night, in what observers called the biggest political upset in modern American history, Mamdani defeated Cuomo, winning the Democratic primary in a city where the Democratic nomination is tantamount to election. The general election in November was anticlimactic, despite harsh criticism from Republicans, including Representative Elise Stefanik, who called him a jihadist communist and terrorist sympathizer. Mamdani won decisively. Even President Trump, who had campaigned against him, met with him after the election and promised support, saying he wanted to help, not hurt, New York City. The first days, ambition meets reality. Mamdani's inauguration on January 1, 2026, was more than a ceremony. It was a statement of purpose, a declaration that New York City politics would never be the same. Zohran Mamdani's inauguration as New York City's 112th mayor marked a historic political shift, celebrated by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as a grassroots victory over entrenched political establishments and as a breakthrough for representation. Mamdani becoming the first Muslim mayor, first South Asian mayor, youngest mayor in over a century, and first immigrant mayor in generations, while Mamdani himself pledged to govern boldly as a democratic socialist without diluting his principles, promising to serve and protect all New Yorkers, regardless of political differences. His first actions included appointing a transportation commissioner, revoking his predecessor's late executive orders after corruption charges, issuing new orders to confront the housing crisis and predatory fees, creating an office of mass engagement, and strengthening tenant protections through activist appointments. Moves that immediately signaled a break from conventional governance, but also triggered controversy over past social media posts by some appointees, highlighting the tension between progressive activism and managing a diverse city under intense scrutiny. At the same time, Mamdani demonstrated pragmatism by retaining experienced officials like NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, partnering with Governor Hochul to expand free childcare, and engaging both cultural figures and grassroots communities, showing an ability to bridge activism, governance, and public symbolism. As his first 100 days approached, the central question became whether his ambitious agenda, free buses, universal childcare, public grocery stores, and massive affordable housing, could overcome fiscal limits, bureaucratic resistance, and political opposition from wealthy interests and moderates. Yet his large popular mandate, mobilized volunteer base, and global attention gave him leverage uncommon for a new mayor. Ultimately, Mamdani came to represent not only a new political figure, but a new governing philosophy that rejected incrementalism in favor of transformation, challenging assumptions about what policies could work and what kind of politics could win. And as New Yorkers watched him navigate the realities of power, his rise from immigrant roots to City Hall became both a symbol of the American promise and a national test of whether democratic socialism could move from protest to effective governance, making his early mayoralty an experiment with implications far beyond New York City.